Oh, well, bona, tomahawka, haka, haka, my friend Dan. I like the movie. The podcast about movies. My name is Garrett Smith.
My name is Dan Scully.
There you go. I brought that in nice and hot, I think, right?
Yeah, that
We're
was pretty
ready now.
good. My
Good.
screen
Excellent.
glitched out, so I didn't get all of the hotness. But I
Oh, it's
felt the
fine.
energy as it came on tape. As long as the listeners and the viewers got the hotness, then
They
we're
know
good to
what's up.
go.
Welcome
So
back.
we're
Welcome
doing
back.
we're just gonna catch up on some stuff that we've been watching.
Dan and I are
Um
mid-loose conversation, and we're just going to keep it going on mic.
yeah, we're gonna keep it going on Mike. We had some strange scheduling stuff occur.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna start popping off hot doing this.
We
And
were
I
just
know a
talking.
great way to start it off.
Do it. Do it.
I know a great way to start it off. So earlier this week, I watched a movie that you were talking about a couple times back.
Yeah.
I still have not watched the second one, but I watched When a Stranger Calls
Oh,
earlier this
yes.
week
Yes.
with Carol Kane
Yes.
and oh God, what's the guy's name?
I'm looking it up right now because I love this guy. I know
Yeah,
exactly who you're trying to think of.
he's in like Dog Day, and
Hold on.
he's like the most unhealthy looking man I've ever seen, but he also lived to be like 90.
Oh wait. So are you talking about
I'm talking
first?
about Cap.
Yep. And Charles Durning, right?
Charles Durning, that's
Yep.
it. I always forget his name.
Yep.
Man,
By the
Durning
way,
rules.
my pause was because I went to look up the cast and clicked on When a Stranger Calls and was just looking at a bunch of people like, you look like a mid 2000s star. Oh, I clicked on the wrong When a Stranger Calls.
You clicked on the remake that was directed by the director of Con Air.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and The Expendables.
Yeah.
You can do
What's
it. You know his name.
Simon
You know his
West?
name. You Yes. I was
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
got it. I
Yeah.
heard it. Yeah, and actually I remember seeing that in the theater and being like, "It was all right."
Yeah.
Like a teen would dig it, that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thing.
I like When a Stranger Calls a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was what was I think what struck me was the structure of it,
Yeah.
because it's a movie that was on TV a fair amount as a kid, and I had
Hmm.
always seen pieces of, but it was always mischaracterized in my head, because the hook of that movie is the caller is calling from inside the
Yes.
house,
Right.
get out now.
Yep.
Remember the Bud Ice commercials with the Doobie Doobie Doo penguin?
Yes.
They did one where it was calling and saying "Doobie Doobie Doo" from inside the house. So like that, like there's all these weird, like that is the most iconic thing. Is it's in the house, get out.
Yep.
Such a big subversion of the caller being outside the house. Horror is redefined, and so I sat down to watch it, and I was like, I was expecting to have that part at the end spoiled for me.
Yes.
And so it started, and I was just like, oh, they're getting ready. Oh, that's the thing. Oh, it's a different movie now for the next hour.
Yes.
And then the next hour is just a crazy, fat cap chases bad guy.
Yep.
and also bad guy has a creepy little weird word. And then they loop her back in, and it
Yes.
becomes a story about like it goes from a story about like just like crazy horror to like cop chasing to like cops gotta close the books on a long case while his original victim processes her trauma, and it all comes together in this way that for a movie that is like almost brashly clunky for the fun of it,
Yes.
ends up being so elegant by the end.
Yes.
It was awesome. I loved it, man.
You feel like you're watching like three separate one-act plays,
Yeah.
and then like in the finale it sort of like threads the needle on all of them in a way that makes them all like feel like, oh, this was like a very measured, calculated way to tell this story, actually. Yeah, I love I mean, that I'm right with you. I thought for sure I went into that movie thinking I was going to be bored by it because I thought I knew the ending.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like when I finally watched Psycho, where I was like, I thought I knew what I was getting into, and it's like, you don't. There's like so much about these movies that even if you know the big moment, you don't actually know anything about them just because you know that big moment. You know what I
And
mean?
like the big moment is actually quite small.
Yes, yes.
It's like the first time I watched, I was on Shame Files doing Braveheart,
Yeah.
and it was one that was one of Jill's favorites, and Ryan and I had not seen it.
Yep.
And the big, they can take our blah blah blah, but they will never take our freedom.
Yeah.
That's like real early in the movie,
Yeah.
and it happened, and I remember looking around and being like, I thought this movie was like 3 hours long. Are we
Yeah.
like about to roll up on the big battle?
Yeah.
And Jill's like, oh no, this is like Act 1 turn. oh shit.
Well, and it's all of these moments that we're talking about now too are like Act One turn moments, and it's funny to think about that because when you hear about these moments, they feel when you hear that speech, you can't possibly imagine a movie that starts with that speech. Like that speech
Yeah,
has to be the I'm motivating everybody at the end of a long battle to do one last
that
stand.
speech in no like Braveheart is the only instance where that speech doesn't result in 30 minutes of just horrifying violence roll credits,
Right, exactly.
because like that's the only response to that speech.
Exactly.
But they managed to give that and then not roll
Yeah.
credits.
And same with this movie. When a stranger calls, the call is coming from inside the house. When you hear that, it's like you can only imagine that a movie ends that way.
Yeah, get
Once you
out,
have
it's in the house.
once you have that information, what could the movie possibly be?
Yeah,
And then it turns out there's like actually like a lot of interesting things that the movie could be.
I think that's what it comes down to, is it was really interesting. I went
Yeah.
in there thinking like, man, I already know the plot. And
Yeah.
then it turns out that I didn't know the plot, and it turns out that it's actually another instance where like the plot was superficial. It actually had some story
Yeah.
that it worked through its plot. And if I may say so, Charles Durning's friend, the cop that helps him out, the tall
Hmm.
black guy, I don't remember the character's name, and I should look up the actor, but
I probably
in
still have
that one scene where he's holding a party at his house,
it. Hmm.
he is tasked with playing a guy who's a little bit drunk. And I have never seen a little bit drunk played so accurately. Because
uh,
everybody either goes crazy drunk or something, like does a thing, and he didn't seem like anyone being a goof or doing any day player shit. He was actually, I suspect he probably had a drink or two and just went for it.
yeah, yeah. I think Ron O'Neal is who you're
Ron
referring to.
O'Neal?
I
Okay,
believe
well,
that's the
kudos
actor's
to Ron
name.
O'Neal. He's
Yeah.
still around?
I don't know. Let me see. I'll tell you in 1 second. No, he died in 2004.
Okay, okay. Yeah, Durning, I remember seeing
Dude,
Charles Durning in a Dog Day and being like, man, this guy is just on.
and he's
And
in everything. He's in the fucking
everything.
Muppet movie. He's
Yep.
in Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Like he's got 216 acting credits.
But like in Dog Day Afternoon, so that's 1975. So he would
Yeah.
have been 52 there. I
Yeah.
remember thinking, man, I got to look this guy up. He's great. He probably died about 10 minutes after they wrapped on this movie because nobody could. And then he lived another 37 years.
My man died in
He
2012 at age 89.
89. And but I think that's another one of those where it goes to show like his last credit is in 2015, three
Yeah.
years after he died. So I think it goes to show what I think a lot of people say is like, I don't care who you are, if you work and you continue to work and create and do what you love, you got a better shot.
Man, he's Charles Durning. He's got one of those voices that you can hear it when he like
Yeah, he's
it's
so good.
yeah, he okay, you have to see the sequel to this movie.
They're both on Amazon Prime, so I watched it with the intention of sometime in the next week I'm chipping that one off.
You have to, because
Yeah.
it's one of the craziest sequels I've ever seen in like good ways. It's like,
Mm.
for one, they basically just, I mean, not to I think I can do this without spoiling the movie. Really, they kind of just redo the opening,
Yeah.
but it's like 30 years later. It's a TV movie from the 90s. But it's the same director as the
Yeah.
original.
That's
Both
wild. What are
both
the odds?
both Durning and what's her name come back.
Carol
Carol Kane.
Kane,
They both come back.
the Mafu Cage.
And so the movie, like, so they kind of recreate the opening, but it's in the 90s, and so it straight up looks like Scream. It literally you watch the
Like
opening.
what point in the 90s? Like real
It's
early or like
early
around Scream
90s.
time?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like it's like 92 or 3 maybe, I feel like. But
I mean, there's no way that opening to Scream was not inspired by the callers calling for, because even in the trailer, because I want to know who I'm looking at.
yeah.
Before I knew what Scream was, when I was a kid seeing that in that trailer, I remember being like, "Ooh, that's scary. That's good."
Yeah.
You know, like, so I think, yeah.
Well, and just wait till you see this movie, because it's even the way the guy shoots this like suburban 90s house. It just, all of it feels so much like Scream. It really feels like you're watching the blueprints for like what Scream is when you watch that sequel. But then the other thing is, it just like the first one, it like veers away from what you think it's going to be about and literally just becomes like a very serious drama that investigates the trauma that Carol Kane's character experienced as a
I'm
young
into it.
woman. and how she kind of like carries that into the rest of her life. And she sort of becomes like a therapist. And so then
Okay.
it's about her trying to help like a new victim that's like going through a similar thing. And so then Durning gets like roped back into this as this sort of like new case like kind of opens up that's very similar to what Kane experienced. And then as they're sort of opening up this idea of like how it like reopens this woman's trauma, and she's like having to relive and relitigate this trauma, and it's taking it very seriously, and is like a really fucking good movie about that stuff. Then it fucking doubles down and veers into one of the craziest slasher movie plot lines I've ever really seen. It just goes full bore into like really weird shit after being like a very serious drama that totally takes it's great, man. I
I
really
can't
like the
wait.
sequel. I
I'm
hope I'm
into it.
not overselling it. I really like that sequel.
I don't think you could oversell it. I mean, even as I go on about how this first one surprised me, I think you understand what I mean when I say like I
Yeah.
know what I was getting into to
Yes.
a degree enough that I knew how to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it surprised me in a lot of ways, but it did scratch the itch of what I was seeking when I pressed play. You better believe I'm watching the second. When I checked for the first, I was like, I'm gonna make sure the second one's available too, just so that I don't start this project and leave it abandoned.
Yes.
And yeah, I can't wait to watch that.
I
I
love it. And there's
the
no way you'll be able to predict like how weird it gets. It get,
sweet.
it gets weird in a way where most reviews of the movie I've seen, people are like, "This is the dumbest fucking shit I've ever seen." But
Yeah,
it tickled me. I was like, I cannot believe that's where this movie goes. It's great.
I think knowing that will help because
Mm.
if I get blindsided by weirdness, it's either the most enchanting thing in the world to me or it like puts me out entirely.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, okay, I'm ready for it.
It
I
it
want to
takes a
say
fun
though,
turn.
in that first one, the scene where she gets the call at the restaurant
Yeah.
later, that is the direction, the editing, every piece of that scene was like just really, really well done
It
and
sends
airtight.
like a shiver. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you get that like tingle in your spine like
Well, and you
throughout that.
get everybody like closes in and like clearly with the idea of like, are you okay? But then they show it from her perspective where it's like everything's closing in, but she doesn't have any recourse.
Yes.
And the husband's trying to like put off the cops and say it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I'll explain to you why this is a problem.
Yeah.
It's a long story, while talking to the babysitter and getting a
Yeah.
handle and comforting the wife and keeping the crowd. And it was one of those moments where I like, I felt the whole thing ratcheting up,
Yep.
and it came out of nowhere because I was just kind of cruising with the movie at that point. So yeah, thumbs way up.
Yeah,
I,
I'm
I
so
loved
glad
it,
you
man.
enjoyed it. I'm
Yeah,
so glad.
I
I
loved
mean,
it. It was fucking great.
and that movie is one of the movies that sort of helped me kind of zero in on like, oh, I just really like slasher movies. Like this is
Mhm.
not just a like, whoops, turns out I like Jason, can't believe it. It's like, no, I like slasher movies. Like I really like these mysteries about killers. I don't know. That's just like a thing that I really latch onto in movies in general.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just tons of fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's so much fun. Yeah, I do like. I was glad that this didn't stay a slasher its entire time,
Yes.
but I think that its slasher elements were done well. But
Hmm.
as I understand it, the way you're describing it, the second one slasher elements are a little more slasher, and
Yes.
I'm into running with that.
It is, to me it's one of those things where it's like that sequel shouldn't exist, and the fact that it does, like it's a 30 years late made for TV sequel, it should be dog shit.
Is it
You know
really
what I mean?
30 years later? What's the?
Yeah, it's like cuz I think 76 or something is the first one, right? Hold on. 79 is the first one, and then When a Stranger Calls Back is 93. So 89, oh no, it's
So
15
14
years.
years, 15
Yeah,
years.
15.
Yeah.
I doubled it. Yeah, 15 years. But like
Still,
15 years late made for TV does not speak to quality necessarily. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Well,
Like,
actually, I got a press release today announcing that coming soon to Amazon Prime is Coming to America.
oh, I know, yes.
And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's about 30 years now.
Yep,
I'm gonna watch it.
sure.
I'm excited that Arsenio Hall still
Yes,
exists,
yes.
but that's one of those things where it's like could it be When a Stranger Calls Back, or
Here's
will
what I'll
it
say.
be Wall Street Money Never Sleeps? I don't know.
I don't have tons of hope for these like Lega sequel type movies. But we got Creed out of it. We got there's like good movies can be made
Yeah.
in this
I
model,
liked
right?
Super Troopers too,
Yeah,
quite a bit.
yeah. Good
Hell, I
movies.
even liked that stupid Shaft reboot that they did.
Yeah, good movies can be made in this model. But here's what I will say about Coming to America, where I'm skeptical because I don't know. I think a lot of these Lego sequel movies are just kind of they're not necessarily. But it's Craig Brewer. It's the guy that just did Dolomite Is My Name with
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy and wasn't Arsenio in that movie too?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Wait, in Dolomite?
yeah.
No, he wasn't. It was Wesley
Oh,
Snipes was though.
yes. Snipes is who I'm thinking of.
I had the
Yes.
same thought though. Yeah.
Yes.
Um.
And I like
Okay, I
that
didn't
movie.
realize that.
I liked that movie quite a bit, and Eddie showed up for that movie. Like Eddie was good in that
Yeah.
movie. So
Well, he also did Black Snake Moan, which rocks.
right, yeah, and
Hustle and Flow.
Hustle and Flow, which is great.
And he did the movie that no one talks about actually being really fucking good. The Lega sequel, remake, reboot of Footloose is also Craig Brewer.
I've heard that's good.
And people forget that the punch dance in that movie, the famous Kevin Bacon punch dance, it's set to the White Stripes. I believe Catch Hell Blues. And so I'm all in. Yeah, okay, so that actually gives me a little more confidence.
Yes. That was the thing that excited me the other day when I read that. I was like, oh, okay, well, I liked his last movie like quite a bit. And Eddie Murphy was a lot of fun in that movie too. So I don't, could be a good time.
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
It's going to be available.
I'm up for the Eddie Murphy comeback.
I think Eddie Murphy should do it. I think he's afraid. I don't want to presume any of his thoughts. Yeah. But if I were him, I would be reticent to come out and do stand-up, because if you've ever watched some of his older stand-up, it's still hilarious, and the comedic timing is there, the sharp wit, all of it's there, but there are elements that are very dated in ways that aren't pretty. Yeah. And so, I would be hesitant if I were him to do stand-up and risk a reassessment of older stand-up.
Yeah.
But I would, like, when he did... what was it that he presented an award for? I forget, but he did like a couple minutes of stand-up up front very recently. And it wasn't stand-up, but he did a speech, and he was very loose, he was very funny, and it was so good, and it was so funny, and all I could think was, this guy who is truly a great stand-up comedian transitioned to being truly a film superstar, and then transitioned into just like a stalwart, reliable face that you can use if you need to. You know, all those late-stage Eddie Murphy movies, they were like, I didn't care for them and all that, but the fact of the matter is they were successful and beloved where they needed to be. Yeah. And I would love to hear a stand-up act where he goes back and talks about his career and his life and how fame changed, how his brother became famous, how, just like how it tied into everything, how he was nominated for an Oscar, how he was, all this stuff. He could just talk about what it's like being back in comedy, and it would just... I feel like that's a recipe for some transcendent stuff, and I think he's talented and capable enough of doing it. We'll see if we ever get it, but anytime that he shows up and gives his A game, you can expect that it's going to be quality, and Dolomite really does exhibit that.
I would be into that. Like I weirdly I've missed his presence in movies in particular, just because that's how I grew up with Eddie Murphy, was Eddie Murphy the movie star,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what would be awesome? I don't know why this just popped into my head, but you know what Lego sequel I actually want from Eddie Murphy? Give me Bowfinger 2.
Okay.
I want to see
I still gotta revisit Bowfinger.
I want to see him and Steve Martin return to those characters and show me the the sequel to Purse Ninjas that I've been dying for.
I mean, honestly, I would love to get one more like high quality cinematic comedy romp from Steve Martin.
Yeah,
because like he's moved on to a music career, and he's always good. I love I read all of his books. I think he's phenomenal. But like, going out movie wise, like if the guy who made LA Story and The Jerk, for one of his like more recent movies to be Bringing Down the House is like, it is what it is. But I would like to revisit Bowfinger. I remember when you had revisited it, I was sold on it, and I never got around to it. But I'll take that Lego sequel.
It's delightful. Yeah, highly. Yeah, I will highly re-recommend Bowfinger. That movie's great.
You know what Lego sequel I don't want to see?
What's that?
Imagine if they made a movie called Tommy Man, and it was a sequel to Tommy Boy, and just like they do with all the grown-ups, they just plug Kevin James in. And so he would just like, man, oh my God, and just do like his best Farley, and David Spade would be like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, I'm smarmy. And it would just be that now.
Yeah.
That's a Lego sequel I don't want is Tommy Man.
I like this idea, like a sequels we don't want.
Yeah, I don't want that. But I mean, that's how it would be done. And to tell you the truth, not gonna lie, I think that Kevin James would be capable of eliciting laughs from that premise more so than many. But I'm not going any further than that.
Yeah.
That's it. But the only thing that would make me want it is to get Dan Aykroyd back as Zelensky Motors guy.
Oh my God.
That's who I am, and that's who I care about.
Aykroyd had tons of those like little roles in the 80s, and that's where he shines, I think. Like keep that guy away from starring in movies. But get him in more just like auxiliary roles.
Yeah, we don't need another season of Soul Man.
Yeah.
But like I'll take some more some more Zelensky or stuff like that.
The what is he, the governor of Arizona in Evolution? Is that
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I last time I saw Evolution was in the theater.
We Tori and I revisited that probably a couple years ago now, but like somewhat recently, and I found it enjoyable all over again. I loved that movie. I also saw it in theaters. I bought it on DVD. Like my sister and I watched that movie over and over again on DVD, and it holds up. It's like because it's an Ivan Reitman movie, and it definitely, you can tell that it was like written to be a Ghostbusters sequel and sort of got reworked into like a not Ghostbusters movie. And so it has a lot of charm in that regard. It also has a lot of just like, we're two adult men hitting on 17-year-old girls at the college we teach at. Like there's a lot of just like, this has aged very poorly.
Fair, yeah. I remember when I saw it in the theater enjoying it, but being like, oh, I'm a little underwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I remember that was the point too, where we were like, we were trying to get, they were trying to break Orlando Jones into, and he's great. I actually really enjoy him.
He's great in that movie in particular.
Oh yeah, and him and Duchovny are great together. Yeah. I'm always going to be a Sean William Scott diehard.
I'm with you.
Julianne Moore, of course, is just she's a higher being than the rest of us humans. But I remember emerging from that and being like, I don't think that's gonna set any fires. It was, but it's still having enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably would sit exactly in the position you're talking about if you watched it again today. You'd be like, yep, that's about as underwhelming as I remember.
I have an image in my head of like an alien butthole sort of thing that they're reaching stuff into, but that's like all I got. I don't really remember much else.
Which, by the way, is much more fun to watch like now and realizing like, they just built a big plastic alien asshole for this movie.
That's incredible. Respect.
That's not a visual effect. That's just a big plastic alien asshole.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah, I would watch that again. Oh my God. What is time?
I know.
I need time to catch up on everything. And I have so many like started watch projects that I want to get through. And I'm like really biding my time because I have so many Bonds to get through. I'm going to watch all of them before I see the new one. Yeah. So I'm just like, delay it, man. Keep pushing it back. Keep going. I've got plenty of time to die, if you know what I mean. Go for it.
Yes. Yeah. That's like a whole can of worms with what's going on with movies being released and when they're going to get released and who's deciding to release what, how.
It's wild. I'm glad I bought a TV.
I know.
Because I'm going to watch the fuck out of some Wonder Woman on Crimbus. Yep. Oh, baby. That's going to be great.
I know. And it's like, I am happy that I will get to see that movie and in that way, because I'm sure as shit not going to a movie theater over Christmas. It's just not happening.
It's just not happening.
So I'm happy that I will get to enjoy that Wonder Woman movie. But, I do think there's something being lost there, right? Like, I do think that, like, we will have much less wasn't Wonder Woman cool conversation. Mm-hmm. I feel like that. I think that actually is the thing that seems to get killed by moving exclusively to streaming more than anything else. Is the actual talking about it buzz around a movie. I don't necessarily feel like movies are getting lost on streaming. I get the impression they're still being watched. we're just not talking about them as much because I don't
We
know.
move
I don't
on
know.
from them quicker because it
Yeah.
wasn't like I think people are more inclined to say, "Oh, I went and saw this movie the other day," as opposed to like, "Yeah, I was like watching Netflix the other day. I caught Wonder Woman," like that kind of thing.
I
But also too, I mean, there's no venue and this is not even due to theaters being closed or anything, just due to quarantine.
Yeah.
There's no venue at which to have a conversation that isn't online,
Yep.
and online is dominated by the people who are not casual moviegoers, who
Yep.
are critics, who
Yep.
are, more of a fan of a thing as
Yep.
opposed to, and believe it or not, a movie like Wonder Woman would get a lot of people who go, "Oh, I hear that's the thing to see, I'll see it." Not the people like us that are like, "I'm going to consume every comic book movie," or, and so I think there is some of that will be lost. At the same time, I really do. I think that, even though there is always going to be, if we dig deep enough and act cynical, there's always going to be a monetary reason behind any choice that any release model exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there is a small amount of goodwill in the decision, despite the fact that it's a shame, despite the fact that Patty Jenkins' elevation will naturally have to plateau a little bit here, being one of the ones that we are now dumping. Like it's interesting what they're choosing to dump first. And so I just think that despite all of that, I do think that there is some altruism in the idea of, hey, stay home. We
Yeah.
got a movie for you. And so I'm just trying to hold on to that because that's nice, even though it is, a lot of bad things surrounding it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I got a little bit distracted during that conversation because I think we might have a guest we can bring in.
Okay.
What do you think about that? Do you want to keep on trucking here and bring someone in?
Um, let's see. Yeah,
Or do you want
we
to
can.
seal this one up?
Let's seal this one up and then we'll do the one with him.
That sounds good. Let's do it. So
Okay.
this will be a nice tight episode that we just put out. People will get to hear this soon because I think it's a little timely, right? And then we'll put this. We have another episode we're going to record in 5 minutes here, and that'll come
Cool.
out soon too.
Beautiful.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, find us online. We're everywhere at I Like 2 Movie. It's numeric 2. Email us, I like 2 movie at gmail.com. And leave us subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. If you're watching this, subscribe. That would help us out a lot. We'll eventually get a nice I Like 2 Movie link if we get enough subscribers. And I would like that link.
Oh shit, I'm up.
Do it.
At Dan Scully on all the things. Letterboxd. Check out cinema76.com, Findy.com. Check out Hot Property Podcast, and I think that's everything.
Awesome. I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Philadelphia. That's with an F. My name is Garrett Smith, and I like to movie. My
name is Dan Scully, and I like to movie. I'm with Dab.
And we all know that you like to movie because we
like to
movie. I dabbed at the end.